Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:06 on O'Connor and Company. It's our fourth hour here of our 4-hour program. If you missed anything up till now, that's okay. You can still catch up. Just subscribe to our podcast wherever you like to listen to podcasts. It's this show repurposed in podcast format, and you'll love it. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
So Democrat lawmakers decided that they would exercise their right of oversight at a DHS detention facility over the weekend. They stormed the fence, literally, trying to rush through an open gate that had been allowed open for a bus containing a bunch of detainees. And this is what it sounded like when they tried to bust into the facility. Cut 30. That's because law enforcement officials with ICE were attempting to keep the facility secure, and that included politicians running through an open gate to try to follow a bus into the facility. On Cut 31 here, CNN Representative Bonnie Watson-Coleman claims,
but there's no reason for it. Nothing happened other than the chaos that they created themselves. If anything, we were pushed and shoved and found in a very vulnerable situation for the three of us.
That you put yourself into.
Yeah. If anybody knows anything about law enforcement, it's that they really like to create chaotic, dangerous situations for members of Congress.
It's on video, lady.
Yeah,
it shows you throwing punches.
Here comes Ron Vitiello. He's a former U.S. Border Patrol agent and former acting director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, currently now a senior advisor to Border Protection. Mr. Vitiello, thanks for joining us. You saw the video. How would you describe what you saw there?
Well, thanks for having me on. It's disappointing besides the danger that was incurred by everybody that was out there, right? These folks had a choice. These Congress people, they do have an oversight responsibility. They're supposed to be in Washington producing on behalf of the American people. So they're not worried about the fiscal health in New Jersey. They're not worried about how unaffordable New Jersey is becoming for the people who work there. They have to go to an ICE facility with a mayor who's obviously running for governor to promote the idea that that people who are in the country illegally and have committed crimes against the citizens of New Jersey in some cases, that they need to be stood up for and that we need to rush into this facility. So those officers that were there, instead of protecting that facility, instead of being able to go out and arrest more criminal aliens, they had to sequester these folks from Congress to keep them from running amok inside a detention facility that has hardened criminals in it.
Let's be honest, this has nothing to do with the people in that detention facility. This has everything to do with fundraising and having these viral moments and coming off looking like you're some sort of hero so that you can campaign on it and, again, send these fundraising letters out. These people do not care about the Border Patrol, and they don't care much. They probably care more about the criminal illegal aliens in that facility, but don't you just see this as grandstanding, as political sort of, stunts?
Yes, it's absolutely a stunt. The Democrats, for many decades now, have tried to convince the American people that thousands of people coming across the border illegally without being invited, without it being inspected, and then go on to commit other crimes in the United States, that somehow we should be standing up for that somehow that's not a danger to our society, that somehow we can just let people who come across illegally stay in the country. They promoted that narrative, and now they're losing that narrative because they lost the election, the presidential election, to Donald J. Trump, the president who promised to have safe streets in America and to secure our border. He has effectively done that in a wonderful way. For somebody that's been around this for 40 years, we have more safety and security at our southwest border than in the history of this country. And so they're losing the narrative on what is important to their constituency because their constituency voted for safety and security and to make America safe again.
Mm-hmm. There's we're speaking with Ron Vitiello. He's a former Border Patrol agent and former acting director of ICE. There's clearly a motive here to paint the president, Tom Homan, DHS, and law enforcement as some sort of Gestapo secret police with these, prison camps for people who are in the country illegally, who are just here to find a better life for themselves and get a better economic outlook. And here's the president rounding them up with his goon squad. Weren't these the same Democrats, by the way, who were championing law enforcement? It's like the only law enforcement they've ever actually cared about, it appears, were those who were involved with January 6th. But, Ron, I got to think that this does not sit well with the rank and file and with the members of federal law enforcement who are just, all they've ever wanted to do is do their job. And the next thing you know, they're either accused of whipping Haitian migrants from horseback or now this.
Right.
No, it's absolutely right. We don't need activists in Congress. They keep talking about this could happen to anyone. Well, it doesn't happen to people who are in the country illegally and do not commit crimes. It doesn't happen to people who live and are born here. As someone who's first generation on my mother's side in the United States, we all treasure the contributions of immigrants into the country. But immigration is supposed to work for people in the United States to keep us safe. It's supposed to be a benefit to the American populace, not to the people who are coming, not to criminals who abuse their place in our society by coming in without being inspected, without being invited, and then committing other crimes. And yeah, you're right. The workforce doesn't deserve this kind of leadership. Well, they keep talking about due process. There's no due process. There's no due process. There is a process, and everybody that's arrested by ICE gets a chance at that process. And for them to suggest that it doesn't exist is really a deception on the American people, because guess what? Those members of Congress likely voted for the last couple of budgets or advocated for the last couple of budgets that Joe Biden submitted to Congress. They fund detention centers. They fund immigration courts. They fund immigration lawyers who work for the government. So let's not pretend that there's no process. The process that exists because Congress created it in law, and they fund it every single year.
There's a suggestion that an ICE agent was actually assaulted during this confrontation. You could see a lot of, limbs and elbows, and even I thought I saw a punch thrown from one of the congressmen to one of the police officers. Do you recommend that they press charges on this, or do you think that it's better for all involved that this just sort of we pump the brakes and have it tamped down a little bit? I mean, if I were that ICE agent, I would want some sort of repercussion against an elected official.
There needs to be consequences for this lawless activity, and so there's a number of witnesses that saw what happened directly. You have all the law enforcement folks. I understand that there's video of the events as well. There may be video from inside the facility, like security cameras, et cetera. I think the U.S. Attorney's Office should look at that very closely on behalf of the men and women of HSI and ICE, ERO, and the entire department. That should be looked at scrupulously, and if there are violations of the law, regardless of these folks being in Congress, they should be prosecuted for it, and there needs to be a consequence. The people of New Jersey ought to enhance their consequences too, because we don't need activists in the halls of Congress. We need people who are working on behalf of the American people.
Thank you for joining us, Ron Vitiello. Appreciate you joining us very much to give us your insight on this.
Thanks for having me on.